I've got an itch I can't scratch, I'm missing a piece that completes a whole part of me, an open wound scar to see. Everybody come here, gather round, welcome to the freak show, the best in town. What the hell's wrong with me? I don't get along with anybody, honestly. I've been living in my own head, constantly thoughts jumbled around, think I need a new lobotomy. Wait, all these thoughts are too negative. I don't wanna get lost in the sedative. Gotta show them what I got, I'm competitive. You know I'm about to go off, I won't let them win, I'll take a stab. I wanna chase the bag, I wanna weigh, I can change all the things I lack. I gotta face the facts, I got a taste in that. Got me obsessed with the rest, I got an itch to scratch. I'll give up everything. If I could see my dreams, cause I'll do anything to make whatever you don't make.
Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a fantastic day. We're going to talk about the Arizona woman who poisoned her United States Air Force husband's coffee with bleach. And we're going to see what kind of sentencing she got. Her name is Melody Johnson. But first, I want to talk. We talked about this. This is going to be a short. Hey, Mars, I missed you so much. Hey, Jeff. Hey, Richie. We talked about this lady, right, that stabbed her date boyfriend 108 times. Yes, 108 times. Well, we know she got probation, right? Check this out, you guys. She is appealing her probation because she feels like she deserves nothing. Woman who avoided prison after stabbing lover 108 times is appealing. Now his dad is speaking out. Not only did my son not get any justice, but our family did not get any justice here either, the deceased father tells People. This is her. Her name is Bryn. I'm not really sure how to pronounce her last name. Spejcher, Spejcher. Chad O'Melia was brutally attacked by a woman he had just started seeing in May 2018. The couple had been smoking marijuana before the attack, leading prosecutors to ultimately charge Bryn with involuntary manslaughter in what they described as a marijuana-fueled psychotic episode. Bryn faced up to 5 years behind bars, but in January, the judge sentenced her to 2 years of probation and 100 hours of community service. First, Bryn stabbed the man she was intimately involved with 108 times. Then, after a California jury convicted her of killing the 26-year-old, a judge sentenced her to 2 years of probation and 100 hours of community service in January. The jury convicted her of killing him. And she got 2 years probation and 100 hours community service. But now she says she should not be held accountable for her lover's death at all. So she files an appeal. In December 2023, she was convicted of involuntary manslaughter for the May 2018 stabbing of Chad O'Melia. She killed somebody, and she is serving no prison time for that. And even that's not good enough for her. Chad's father, Sean O'Melia, tells People in an interview, and this is him right here. This is Chad. 108 times, you guys. 2 years probation, and she's just like, I'm not being held accountable for this. I didn't do this. Oh my gosh, she is crazy. All right, let's see. Michael Goldstein and Robert Schwartz, who represented her at trial, tell people they filed notice of her appeal because they disagree with the guilty verdict, but believed the sentence imposed by Judge Worley was appropriate. Under California law, Bryn has nothing to lose by appealing, according to her lawyers, who say her sentence could only be lowered on appeal. So she doesn't want any probation and she doesn't want any customer service. Listen to me, community service. Chad, who was an accountant, and Bryn, an audiologist, met at a dog park. Aw, and then she's such a bitch. Oh my God, look at her face. I think she did this to herself, if I remember correctly. Oh, they only met a few weeks before he died. Who said the couple spent considerable time together in his son's final weeks. Bryn had gone to Chad's Thousand Oaks, California apartment on May 27, 2018, and according to prosecutors' prior press release, the couple took several hits from a bong loaded with marijuana, and that gave her the right to do what she did because it was marijuana induced a psychotic disorder. Get out of here. When I when we went over this before, I said the same thing. Hey, Pink Bow. Entering Chad's apartment in the early morning hours of May 28th, police found Chad in a pool of blood and Bryn screaming hysterically with a knife still in her hands. According to prosecutors, who say that before law enforcement could remove the long serrated bread knife from her hands, she repeatedly plunged the knife into her own neck. Correct. That's what I thought. Using a taser and several baton blows, prosecutors say police disarmed her, whose later mugshot depicts the stab marks crisscrossing her neck. These right here. Girl, you sick. I hope you're getting the help you need in jail. Well, you're not in jail. I hope you're getting the help that you need, period. Dang, they had a taser and beat her with the baton. Holy crap. Sean, who attended court regularly, said he felt that the judge favored the young defendant. He never saw Bryn for who or what she is, Sean says. Repeatedly, he made excuses for that woman. Prior to trial, prosecutors downgraded the charge from murder to non-voluntary manslaughter after medical experts on both sides made findings, quote, so definitely and so similarly in their evaluations, end quote. Judge David Worley said at a September 2023 pretrial proceeding, per a transcript obtained by People, that it changed, quote, the landscape of the evidence in the case. That's why she got probation, because they dropped it. Noting, well, yeah, she had no, not this one didn't accept the plea deal. The other one did. She was found guilty. Noting the jury's 4-hour deliberations heading a guilty verdict and the Ventura County District Attorney's Office's request that she serve the maximum 5 years, Sean says the judge took all that and just threw it away. People reached out to Audrey, who prosecuted the case, along with a spokesperson for the prosecutor's office, but did not hear back in time for publication. In a previous interview with NBC, Audrey said the judge's ruling sets a very dangerous precedent, called it a slap in the face to the victim's family, and said it signaled that it's okay to smoke marijuana and butcher someone with 3 knives, but it's not okay. That's true. It is a slap in the face to the family, and it's a slap in the face to the deceased. In a previous interview with Rolling Stones, Audrey added that it was the most heinous and violent involuntary manslaughter case she had covered in nearly 30 years as a prosecutor. 2 years probation. In another county, I think she'd have been tried for murder, Sean tells people, because she wouldn't have just been seen as a harmless white woman. She'd be seen for what she truly is. Bryn took two family members from him, Sean says. Sean says that Chad's mother, Michelle, fell into a depression and let her health go, succumbing to a diabetic coma and diabetic heart failure within years of Chad's death. She just couldn't take it, Sean says, choking back sobs as he recalls her death, and it drove her into the ground. A loyal son and older brother who took great pride in his work, dressing in a three-piece suit for the office, Chad really would do anything to help anybody. Sean says, recalling a time that his son had stood up to a set of men harassing an inebriated woman he did not know. My son was a good, kind human being, Sean says, noting that the local church holding 1,200 congregants overflowed out the door at his son's funeral. That is so awesome. I'm amazed how many lives he's touched in his short 26 years. That's kind of like Micah Miller. Yes, she killed him for two and got 2 years probation. She stabbed him 108 times. Now, with Bryn on the streets, Sean says he fears for others' lives, including Bryn's own life. Referencing what prosecutors previously called her psychotic episode, Sean says he worries it could happen again. True, and that's why I said earlier, I really hope that she's getting help. Once you turn that switch on, it can turn on a lot easier next time, he says. The last time she did this, she almost killed herself. So, yeah, I'm actually afraid for her own person. That's crazy. You guys, do you think that she will win her appeal? Yes, the max was 5 years for the charge, and she got 2 years probation and 100 hours community service. Now we're going to talk about Miss Melody. She decided that she wanted, I don't know if she decided she wanted to kill him, but she wanted to do something to him because she decided she was going to put bleach in his coffee. And I'm thinking, bleach has a strong smell, but when you add it to water and it goes through the coffee machine and it comes out boiling hot, like, I'm sure it's not pure bleach anymore. I wonder how diluted it is. Well, he thought this was when they were in Germany, okay? But this is from here in Tucson. Actually, it's a mile from my house is the Air Force base, and this is where they were. No, he didn't. And when you see her sentencing, he had a hand in it because he didn't want her to get, a harsh sentence. He wanted her to get the lesser. Okay, let's see. So this is Melody Johnson. And so he figured something was going on, with the taste of his coffee and things going on. So he puts up video cameras to see what's going on. What is his wife doing or what's happening. He says he did it. She did it to get his benefit money. Y'all, then this lady Melody went. Oh shit! Hold on. Can y'all hear me or see me? Yeah, okay. I just want to make sure because it gave me an error. Sorry about that. 5 years for killing someone means absolutely nothing. Like they minds will not sentence them at all if that's the case. Yes, it was the 5 years for was for involuntary manslaughter. Thank you. Yes, caught on camera. So then she wants to act like Adam Montgomery and refuse to go to court. Woman accused of poisoning husband refused to appear in court. This is her. I swear I have seen this woman somewheres. Probably at like Walmart or something, because like I said, they lived in a mile from me. The woman accused of trying to kill her husband by poisoning his coffee refused to appear in court. 39-year-old Melody Johnson is being charged with attempt to commit first-degree murder, adding poison to a drink, and attempting to commit aggravated assault. Wait till you see her sentence because she just got sentenced. Court documents claim her husband, who was in the Air Force, first noticed his coffee tasting weird in March while they were stationed in Germany. When the family returned to Tucson in June, he started testing his coffee and found high levels of chlorine. He set up cameras throughout the house and apparently caught Johnson pouring something in his coffee pot. A court date has been rescheduled for January 12th. Dang nabbit. Oh, there it is. I need to mute this. Sorry, I just can't play that. I'll get a strike or something. What is she doing? I guess we get to see her cleaning her house before she puts the bleach in his coffee. Oops. Is she like thinking about it? Like, should I do this or shouldn't I? Like, what is she doing? All right, Berto. Thank you, Jeff. Here we go. Oh, shit. Here we go. Bam. Busted. She's putting some more? How much you think she's putting in at a time? Girl, you something else. Y'all. More? Ah, she's cleaning as a reason to have the bleach out. Wow. You saw that? Jeez Louise. So this was going on in Germany, you guys, when they lived in Germany. I guess she's cleaning with the bleach to mask the smell coming from the coffee pot. Maybe. Okay, that's the end. That woman is crazy. Okay, close, please. Thank you. Arizona woman accepts plea deal after poisoning husband's coffee, attempting to kill him. I said, close, please. Thanks. Melody Feliciano Johnson, 39, admitted to putting trace amounts of bleach in her husband's coffee pot and now faces up to 4 years in prison. Traces amounts of bleach? I know. I know about the antifreeze and animals. Yes, trace amounts of bleach, more like a gallon a week, maybe. An Arizona woman who was charged with attempted murder after she poisoned her husband has agreed to a plea deal. Melody Johnson pleaded guilty to 2 counts of adding poison or a harmful substance to food or drink. Bam! That's what she was convicted of. I'll repeat. Guilty. She pleaded guilty to 2 counts of adding poison or a harmful substance to food or drink. Was it a count for every cup she poured into that coffee pot in that video? She was originally charged with attempted first degree murder and pleaded not guilty, but then accepted the plea deal of poisoning someone's food or drink. That sentence ranges of 4 months to 2 years in prison for each count. So she could have faced 4 years, 8 months to 40 years in prison. Johnson's attorney, a public defender, said she admitted to putting trace amounts of bleach in their coffee pot on July 11th and July 18th. Oh, that's why. The 39-year-old was first accused of poisoning her husband, Roby Johnson. I thought they said that he was being anonymous because he was an airman. Guess not. Accused of poisoning her husband's coffee in March 2023 when he noticed a foul taste in the beverage. Roby, an Air Force member, was stationed in Germany with his wife when he first suspected his coffee was being poisoned, and he eventually used testing strips on his coffee and set up video cameras in an attempt to catch Melody in the act. A camera was placed in the couple's laundry room, a second was installed over their coffee machine, and a third was placed to show walking between the two areas. Roby used pool testing strips that revealed his coffee pot showed high levels of chlorine. He set up multiple cameras that looked like fire alarms on the ceiling of the couple's home. Pretty nifty. I didn't know they had those. Did y'all know they had those? Mars, the Visine trial. He pretended to keep drinking the coffee in order to wait until they returned to the States to the Davis-Monthan Air Force Base in Tucson before filing a police report. I live a mile from that Air Force Base. The couple was living together with their child, but were in the process of getting a divorce. Investigators said Roby believes Melody was trying to kill him to collect death benefits. Melody was eventually arrested on July 18th. Her bond was previously set at $250,000, as prosecutors argued that she was considered a flight risk because she recently bought a house in the Philippines. Her sentencing is scheduled for May 10th, which was just the other day. All right, let's see what her sentencing was. Share this tab. Open. Whoops, nope. Is there no sound? Hold on one moment. YouTube. Okay, let me try again. Can you hear me? Okay, let's try this again. Let me know.
Arizona began while they were stationed in Germany and continued for a period of months, and certainly represented a risk, even if it did not turn out to be a deadly risk.
All right. Thank you. And for the defendant?
Can y'all? Okay, good. Thank you.
Your Honor, three things need to be said at the outset of this sentencing. The first, and I need to make this very clear, is that we are no longer here on attempted homicide or attempted aggravated assault charges. And I say that because there has been so much attention on this case and it's still being reported inaccurately. Melody Johnson has pled guilty to 2 Class 6 offenses, which occurred here in Pima County on July 11th and July 18th of last year. And I believe that that should be the court's focus. For several months, the state perpetuated a narrative claiming Robbie Johnson was given a lethal dose of bleach. And I have that written here in quotes in my notes. This was false, based on a number of things that were true both now and when this case was indicted. And that's why I supplied you with the poison control call, as well as our chemist's report. I want to thank Mrs. Otto, however, for her work on this case. It should be made clear that Mrs. Otto was later assigned this case and spent many weeks trying to quickly get up to speed. And she really went above and beyond while handling numerous other cases. We are asking the court to consider a time served sentence. Melody Johnson has been in custody for nearly a year with no meaningful opportunity for release. She's been held on a $250,000 bond. I can't even afford that. Not that that's a shock to anyone.
That lawyer said, I can't even afford that. So she spent a year in jail. I didn't know that either. So I guess you could say credit for time served a year. So she had a year served and 2 years probation.
We also welcome probation, but we do not believe that more time incarcerated is appropriate. Melody Johnson has accepted responsibility for her actions in this matter. She has, as indicated by the pre-sentence report, apologized to the victim, Robbie Johnson. She makes no excuse for her conduct, and that was in her letter to the court. She has also apologized to her friends and her family because they have also been greatly affected by this, given the nature of the attention around this case. Mrs. Johnson has received formal diagnoses for anxiety and depression, and it is true what Mrs. Otto has said. She has long struggled with her mental health. She currently feels stable and has been taking medications while in custody. She intends to continue treatment upon release. And I mention this because I do believe that Mrs. Johnson is capable of seeking support without assistance, in part evidenced by her low risk assessment in the pre-sentence report conducted by probation. Mrs. Johnson was born and raised in the Philippines. She's the eldest of 8 children. As I mentioned in my memorandum, her father worked in law enforcement and was a disciplinarian. Mrs. Johnson will later come to learn that appropriate disciplinary actions varied culturally. Throughout her interview with probation, she remarked that harsh punishments were normal when she was growing up, and that much of what she experienced likely would have crossed the line here in the United States. Still, Mrs. Johnson maintains that she suffered no abuse at the hands of her family growing up. She actually remains close with her family and is close with several family members. She speaks with her mother and sister daily. The two support her both emotionally and financially. Something that occurred while Mrs. Johnson was incarcerated is that her father passed away, and this was incredibly painful and difficult for Mrs. Johnson. Her father, given the nature of his work, was absent for much of her life. So for her to not be present for his funeral and those proceedings was really quite painful for her. She was a very anxious and fearful child. She has 2 children of her own, as you heard already. Nathaniel was mentioned. Stephanie is her other child. She cares for both of them very deeply. She would never harm them. Friends and family have described Mrs. Johnson as loving, sweet, compassionate, and hardworking. She's also a woman of faith. She's known to be dependable and family-oriented. The offenses before the court appeared completely out of character for those that knew her best. Mrs. Johnson does not abuse alcohol or drugs, but she does acknowledge her mental health problems and should be seen as amenable to treatment and an excellent candidate for rehabilitation. She's been proactive in understanding her mental health and has completed anger management programming, as you saw, as well as educational courses on courtroom etiquette and parenting while incarcerated. She has demonstrated a desire to better understand her circumstances and to learn from them. Mrs. Johnson has a stable residence if she is released with friends who will take her in. That has been verified. She's previously maintained steady employment and holds a college degree. She's studied banking and finance and has predominantly held positions in retail in her employment history. What I'm about to say next is not in any way to shift blame to the victim, but we do regularly talk about abuse as a mitigating factor. Mrs. Johnson experienced abuse in her marriage to Robbie Johnson. The two had been married for years. It is worth repeating, as stated in her letter, that she makes no excuse for her actions before the court. The two shared loving and memorable years, and there were many years that their relationship was also toxic, as described by the victim. Mrs. Johnson regularly raised concerns over Mr. Johnson's.
I don't know why they have that plexiglass in front of them and separating them. I went to this courthouse a couple of years ago, like way after COVID happened, and the courtroom I went in had none of this plexiglass stuff all over the place.
Drinking habits. He had been known to come home late often, drunk, blacked out, smelling of cigarettes, and seeking sexual activity from Mrs. Johnson. She very vividly remembers an instance in which she pushed him away and he threatened suicide. It terrified her. It terrified her son. She often was quiet about these instances because she knew how important Robbie's career was to him. Additionally, she was sympathetic. Mr. Johnson likely suffered some mental health issues of his own, given maybe his deployment and some other family trauma.
She has a son. I didn't know that either.
You can't poison somebody over any of that.
Understood. And it is not an excuse for her conduct. It is not. And I want to make that very clear. And it was made clear in her letter as well. The two would often accuse each other of infidelity. And his sexual advances were often physical, Johnson feeling worthless, confused, anxious, and depressed. And I will stop there. Mrs. Johnson is not violent, nor is she a future threat to Robbie Johnson. The events before the court are unusual in nature and atypical of Mrs. Johnson. They arose out of a marriage that was falling apart. They are separating, they're not going to be living together, and a divorce is pending. It is important to note that while Mrs. Johnson's actions, while illegal, unusual, could not have amounted to serious harm, and that is why I attached the reports in my memorandum to the court. Robbie Johnson reported experiencing no symptoms to police, and it is our position, and it remains our position, that the small amount of bleach used in the offenses would never have killed or seriously harmed Robbie Johnson. It could have made him sick. Furthermore, there was no evidence to show that Mrs. Johnson's actions were for pecuniary gain, and I feel that's very important to mention to the court today. Finally, I'll say Mrs. Johnson has no prior criminal history. She was compliant with police at the time of her arrest. She stayed out of trouble at the Pima County Jail, and she only appears in stripes before you today because other inmates were harassing her, given the nature of the charges and, again, the attention that this case has received.
That made no sense. She's only in stripes today because the other inmates were harassing her for her charges. Boo-boo, you've been in jail for a year and they're just now harassing you for your charges that you can't wear regular clothes to court? You have to wear stripes? Come on now.
She took all of the appropriate steps to communicate that with correctional officers and just be placed away from other inmates while pending sentencing. For all of these reasons, again, we ask the court to consider a mitigated sentence of time served. However, should the court find probation is more appropriate, Mrs. Johnson welcomes that opportunity. We do not feel that more jail time or any prison time is appropriate, and we do ask the court to waive attorney's fees. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Johnson, anything you want to say before sentence is pronounced?
No, Your Honor.
All right. All right. This time the court enters the following fines, court fines and aggravation. There was emotional harm to the victim. Court finds in mitigation, defendant accepts responsibility. She expressed remorse in her letter. And counsel, these are his first felony. The victim recommends probation and mental health treatment.
Did you hear that? Let me go back. And so that you can hear that. The victim, okay?
It's an aggravation. There was emotional harm to the victim. The court finds in mitigation. Defendant accepts responsibility. She expressed remorse in her letter. And counsel, these are his first felony.
Here we go, right here. The victim recommends probation and mental health.
The victim recommends probation and mental health
treatment rather than punishment with more jail and or prison, which the court takes into, I guess, consideration.
Punishment with more jail and or prison, which the court takes into account. Defendant appears rehabilitatable and amenable to probation. Given all that's before me, will be the sentence of the court that she be placed on 3 years of probation, the terms to be concurrent with each other, to begin on today's date, May 10th, 2024, subject to standard conditions of probation, including that she report to probation within, and because it's the weekend, I'm going to give her till Monday at noon.
Great.
But any law enforcement contact is to be reported within 48 hours. She's not to have any contact with the victim in any form unless it's approved in writing by probation. What is the status of is there a divorce case pending?
There is.
Or they would have to have contact?
They are both represented by attorneys.
Right, so we'll just show they're not to have contact, or she's not to have contact with him unless it's in a legal context.
Sure.
She's to participate in mental health evaluation and follow any recommended treatment. And just the court will order that she not consume or possess any substance containing alcohol. The following fines apply: lifetime payment fee of $20, probation fees of $65. Court will reduce attorney's fees to $25, probation assessment of $20, a crime penalties assessment of $13, victim right enforcement assessment of $2, victim rights fund assessment of $9, and indigent administration assessment of $25.
She really got a charge of $2.
Ms. Johnson, you do have the right to petition the court for post-conviction relief. You must do that within 90 days of today's date. You also have the right to move to set aside the convictions if and when they qualify under Arizona law. If you complete probation or receive an absolute discharge from prison, and if you've not been previously convicted of a felony and have paid all or restitution, your civil rights will automatically be restored. If you have been convicted of a felony in this or another state and have not paid all or restitution, you could still apply to have your civil rights restored. This does not apply to the restoration of the right to possess firearms if you're convicted of a serious or a dangerous offense. Pursuant to ARS Section 13911, you may be eligible to have this conviction and associated legal records in the case sealed. Defendants to be released on probation upon processing. Make sure that you notify probation as to where you're going to live and that you follow all the conditions of probation. Thank you, parties. Are excused upon signing of the probation conditions.
Thank you, Your Honor.
So that was the sentencing of Melody Johnson, who was convicted of poisoning. What is it? Poisoning, putting a harmful substance in food or drink, and got 2 years probation. The victim didn't want her to have any more jail time and wanted her to have probation, and the judge took that into consideration and gave her 2 years probation instead of 4 years in prison. Well, she actually got 1 year uh, time credit served because she did serve a year. She's lucky she served a year before she went to trial. It could have been longer than that. Look at some of these other trials that take years. Anyway, that's what I wanted to talk to you guys about. If you didn't know, I went live this morning with day 6 of the treadmill case murder, Christopher Greger. Today, the jury was not there. It was just him and his parents on the stand deciding if what they have to say is admissible in the trial. So I hope you guys watch that. And I hope you hit the like button for me. I hope you share this out and subscribe. And I also hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye, y'all.